to the deep dive.
And today, we are grabbing our shovels.
We're heading straight into the mud. And I mean, like, a lot of mud. We are excavating a piece of television history that, depending on who you talk to, is either the greatest unfinished masterpiece.
Or, yeah, the most tragic case of artistic self-destruction we've ever seen.
It really is a tragedy in the classical sense.
It is. You know, when people talk about the golden age of HBO, that whole early 2000s era that just changed TV,
Right.
you always hear the big two. It's always The Sopranos and The Wire.
Always. Maybe 6 Feet Under gets a mention, you know, for the bronze medal.
Exactly. But there's this third pillar of that golden age that I think often gets forgotten, or at least it doesn't have that same pop culture worship, and that is Deadwood.
Which is so wild to me, because the people I know who have seen Deadwood, they don't just like it.
Oh, no.
They're obsessed. It feels less like a fandom and more like a secret society. Everyone knows the handshake.
That is the perfect way to put it, because on paper, it really shouldn't work.
Right.
It's a Western. It's set in, 1870s South Dakota.
And it's filthy. It's violent. And it's secretly a show about, like, zoning laws and mining rights.
Exactly. So if you go in expecting a standard, cowboys and Indians shoot 'em up,
Or a John Wayne movie.
you are going to be completely baffled, like within the first 10 minutes.
Because the visuals say gritty Western, but the audio, the actual words they're saying, that's something else entirely.
It's Shakespeare. It's high art disguised as low culture.
And that's really our mission for this deep dive. We're not just recapping an old show. We have to unpack the specific genius of its creator, David Milch. We have to get into this language of lawlessness he invented.
And we definitely have to talk about why a show this brilliant just imploded so spectacularly.
Oh, absolutely. The chaos behind the scenes, the sudden cancellation.
And then we have to be honest about the movie that came out, a decade later to try and fix it all.
Okay, so let's start right there. That Shakespearean comparison. Critics throw that word around a lot to mean the writing is fancy. But in Deadwood, the analysis suggests it's, like, literal, isn't it?
It is literal. This is one of the most fascinating things. David Milch, the creator, he wasn't just writing dialogue. He was constructing a specific meter. A huge amount of the dialogue is actually in iambic pentameter.
Which is the rhythm of Shakespeare.
Right.
It's the da-doom, da-doom, da-doom.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
It has this cadence, and Milch did it on purpose. He wanted to lift the characters out of our modern way of speaking. In the 1870s, in a mining camp, there's no radio, no TV.
No internet.
Nothing.
Yeah.
People didn't speak in these short, clipped sentences we use. Their language was their entertainment. It was performative.
So you get these characters, pimps, murderers, prospectors, standing in, like, knee-deep pig filth.
Yeah.
But they're speaking in these incredibly complex, eloquent sentences full of subordinate clauses.
That creates this amazing cognitive dissonance. You see a guy who looks like he hasn't bathed in a year. He's maybe slitting a throat.
Right.
But he's delivering a soliloquy on free will. It's incredible.
But, and this is the key, that high-minded rhythm is punctuated by some of the most aggressive profanity ever on TV.
Oh, it is absolutely relentless.
I have some stats here from our source material that just blew my mind. I knew it was dirty, but not this dirty. So across 3 seasons, the word fuck is spoken 2,980 times.
Wow. That's a staggering number.
To put that in context, it averages out to about 83 times per episode. Now, The Sopranos, not exactly a church choir,
Not at all.
averaged about 40, so Deadwood is running at double the vulgarity of Tony Soprano.
But here's where it gets really interesting. The experts all emphasize that you shouldn't just view this as, HBO being edgy.
Just for shock value.
Right, just shock for the sake of it. There's an actual philosophical argument behind the swearing.
Okay, go on, because usually that much swearing just sounds like lazy writing.
Not here.
Yeah.
The analysis is that this relentless obscenity serves a purpose. It represents the miner lifestyle. It signals a compatibility of spirit with the brutal, lawless environment. I mean, you have to remember, Deadwood is an illegal camp. There's no government, no police. If you are weak, you just die.
So the language reflects the stakes?
The language is an assault. It's a way of proving you can handle the reality of the camp. If
Yep.
you're walking down the main thoroughfare using that language signals, I belong here. I am dangerous enough to survive.
It's like a code. If you can speak this dialect of filth and philosophy, you're in the tribe.
Precisely. And honestly, it takes a very specific kind of mind to mix high-concept philosophy with the word cocksucker in the same sentence.
And that brings us to the architect of all this, David Milch.
What a character.
He sounds like one himself.
He really is. I mean, before Deadwood, Milch was already a legend. He wrote for Hill Street Blues, co-created NYPD Blue.
He basically reinvented the cop show in the 90s.
He did. But before all that, before Hollywood, he was a literature professor at Yale.
A Yale lit professor writing a Western. Okay, that explains the iambic pentameter.
It explains everything. He brought that academic rigor to the mud of South Dakota. He was obsessed with how language shapes reality. There's this great anecdote about how he'd direct the actors.
Oh, yeah.
He wouldn't just say, okay, look sad. He would stop production and give a 20-minute lecture on Socrates.
You're kidding me. I can just picture the actors, in a cowboy hat, covered in fake dirt, and the director's giving a dissertation on Greek philosophy.
And the actors all said it worked. They'd be confused for like 19 minutes, and then in the last minute, Milch would wrap it up, and they go, oh, now I get the soul of the scene. It gave the show a depth you just can't fake.
So he's building this world with language, and he's populating it with these characters that feel so real. And a lot of them, Al Swearengen, Seth Bullock, Wild Bill, they were real people, right?
They were. But Milch treats it as historical fiction. He plays very loose with the biographical details. He's not after documentary. He wants the truth of the story, not the facts of the history.
And the center of that story is Al Swearengen. Ian McShane. I mean, this might be one of the top 5 TV characters ever.
Easily. And he is the ultimate anti-hero. Maybe even more than Tony Soprano. He owns the Gem Saloon and brothel. He is a cutthroat. And let's not sugarcoat it, he is a bad guy.
A very bad guy. He beats his workers.
He beats the women who work for him.
Mm-hmm.
In season 1, there's a plot where a little girl, Sophia, survives a massacre. Her existence threatens one of Al's land claims, and he is fully prepared to have a child murdered.
That's pure villainy.
It is.
But then, and this is the magic trick of the show, by season 2 or 3, he somehow becomes the town's greatest defender.
That is the twist. When the plague hits, who organizes the response?
Oh, Al.
When the town needs to fight for annexation into the U.S.
It's Al.
It's Al.
Why, though? Did he have a change of heart?
No, and that's why it's so brilliant. It's pure self-interest. He wants his illegal investments, the brothel, the land, to become legal assets.
So he needs the town to survive for his money to survive.
Exactly. But in doing that, he accidentally builds a community. He creates this weird little family in the Gem with his henchman and Jewel, the woman who cooks for them.
He becomes the accidental patriarch.
Exactly. And he's a total contrast to Seth Bullock, played by Timothy Olyphant.
The sheriff. The quote-unquote good guy.
The foil. In a normal Western, Seth is your hero. He's handsome, he's a lawman, he has a moral code. But in Deadwood, his morality is actually a liability.
How so?
Because he's so rigid. He's honorable, but he's got this terrible temper. He is borderline reckless. He's so obsessed with being right that he almost gets everyone killed constantly.
It's funny, the lawman is usually the steady hand, but here Al, the criminal, is the calm, strategic one.
And Seth is the loose cannon, and Al knows it. He basically manipulates Seth into becoming sheriff because he knows the town needs a face of law and order.
He's using Seth's goodness as a tool.
As a puppet to keep the town stable. He even calls him the heir. He manages him like a difficult child. How's the fucking heir? He'll ask. It just flips the whole genre on its head.
So if Al isn't the villain and Seth isn't the hero, who are they fighting?
Enter George Hearst.
The historical business magnate.
Right. He arrives later, and he represents the real threat. To Milch, Hearst is the embodiment of soulless capital. He just values gold over any human connection.
Al is bad, but he knows people's names. Hearst just sees numbers on a ledger.
Exactly. Hearst doesn't care about the community. He just wants to extract the wealth. So the theme becomes this motley crew. The whores, the thieves, the angry sheriff, the pimp. They all have to band together to stop this soulless corporate machine.
It sounds beautiful. A story about outcasts finding a society. But the production, I mean, looking at the notes, it sounds like absolute chaos.
Chaos is putting it lightly. We talked about Milch's genius, but that genius came at a price. He was famous for rewriting scenes on the fly.
I read this in the notes. He was writing lines in pencil.
In pencil, on the set. His cameras are practically rolling. He would just walk onto the set, hand an actor a piece of paper, and say, here's your new scene.
And again, this isn't past the whiskey. This is that filthy iambic pentameter Shakespeare we were talking about.
Can you imagine being an actor? You have 5 minutes to memorize a complex monologue about the nature of sin, written in pencil, while 50 crew members stare at you.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It was. But the actors also said it created this electricity. You couldn't phone it in.
Yeah.
You had to be present because the script literally just materialized in your hand.
So was that sustainable? Is that why it got canceled? Because a show this good getting axed after 3 seasons is just infamous.
It's a mix of things. First, the cost. It was about $4.5 million an episode. For the mid-2000s, that was monumental money.
Huge.
Ratings were dipping a little. But there was also the Milch factor. He was getting distracted. He's developing a new show for HBO.
Oh, John from Cincinnati. I remember that one. It was weird. Surfing Jesus, right?
Very weird. Didn't do well. But at the time, HBO was worried Milch couldn't run 2 massive, chaotic shows at once. So the president of HBO, Chris Albrecht, he calls Milch. He offers him a shortened final season 6 episodes to wrap everything up.
That seems doable. I mean, it's not a full season, but 6 hours is enough to finish the story. Most showrunners would kill for that.
A rational person might say yes, or at least negotiate. Milch, he refused outright.
Just
No. He felt insulted. And then he did something that basically sealed the show's fate. He hung up and immediately called Timothy Olyphant.
Why him?
Because Olyphant was in the middle of buying a house, a huge financial commitment, and Milch wanted to warn him, hey, don't buy the house, the show is over.
Wow, that's considerate, I guess, but also so destructive.
It was scorching the earth, because once he told Olyphant, it leaked to the press immediately. And once that headline is out there, you can't walk it back.
So the expert verdict is that HBO didn't really kill the show?
Not really. The consensus is that Milch effectively pulled the plug himself. It was ego. He refused to compromise, so he chose to have nothing at all.
And so the show just ends. No resolution. Hearst wins. Al is scrubbing a blood stain. It's bleak. And the fans sit with that for 13 years.
13 long years.
Until 2019, the rumors finally come true. We get Deadwood, the movie.
The reunion.
Now, the general vibe at the time was, yay, we got our ending. People were happy to see the faces again. But our sources, the hardcore critics, they are less enthusiastic.
They are quite critical. They call it a flawed coda.
What's the main issue? Is it just that it was too late?
It's deeper than that. The criticism is that it's blatant wish fulfillment. The original series was dark. It was uncompromising. The bad guys didn't always lose. The movie, it tries to tie everything up in a pretty bow.
Give me an example.
Look at George Hearst.
Yeah.
In the show, he's a terrifying, intelligent monster. He wins because he's smarter and richer than everyone. In the movie, he just acts stupidly. He makes tactical errors just so the heroes can beat him. It feels like they just wanted to see him get punched, so they dumbed him down.
It's fan service.
Totally. And then there's Calamity Jane. In the show, she's a tragic character. An alcoholic, trauma-ridden, a coward. She talks big, but she runs from conflict. In the movie, she's suddenly an action hero saving Bullock in a shootout.
Which feels good to watch, maybe, but it betrays who the character actually was.
It betrays her integrity. And the whole tone is off. The series ended on that gut-wrenching compromise where Al has to kill an innocent to save Trixie. The movie ends with a wedding.
A happily ever after for a world that was never meant to be happy.
Exactly.
So why the drop in quality? Was it just the time gap?
There's a really sad reality behind it. In the years between the show and the movie, David Milch was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow. That puts a completely different light on things.
During production, he was living in an assisted living facility. He couldn't be on set, rewriting lines in pencil, giving the Socrates lectures.
So the eccentric voice, the very thing that made Deadwood, it was fading.
It was. HBO brought in Nick Pizzolatto from True Detective to help finish the script. And he's a talented writer, but he's not David Milch. The movie just serves as proof that Milch's specific, insane, brilliant voice was the essential ingredient.
That's heartbreaking, but it really speaks to the singularity of the original show. You couldn't just hand it off to someone else.
It really does. It shows the magic was in the chaos.
So let's zoom out. We have 3 incredible seasons, a cancellation caused by ego, and a mediocre movie finale. Does that ruin the legacy?
Not at all. Despite the ending, those original 3 seasons remain a unique television achievement. There is just nothing else like them.
It's interesting to think about that idea from the show. Taking joy and respecting the integrity of a different world, even if it's full of mud and swearing.
It lets us step into a reality that's totally foreign, but still feel the humanity in it. That's what great art does. It makes the strange feel familiar.
So here's the question I want to leave you with. We live in an era of very polished, very safe television. Everything is focus grouped and designed to be a franchise.
Right.
Could a show like Deadwood, written in pencil, on the fly, by an erratic genius with a Yale literature degree, costing a fortune, could that even get made today?
I think we both know the answer to that.
And that makes me appreciate those 3 seasons even more. Thanks for diving in with us.
A pleasure.
See you on the next deep dive.